Hello and welcome to the first session of Shattered City. Shattered City is a variation of Legacy Life Among the Ruins, which is a generational Powered by the Apocalypse game that I've played quite a bit. I played it in its first edition, second edition, and in the sort of free from the yoke version. This is a setting that's based on an Italian Euro game, and it was originally called Mysthea, I think. Shattered City is much easier for me to say because I kept misspelling Mysthea as like Mist Sea and other things whenever I wrote it down. So, but apparently that's a sort of area control Euro game that did very well, and that they have I can't remember if they have other spin-off games or they just have expanded it. This has taken that legacy system to do a game about a city that has kind of been destroyed in a world of high fantasy power and magic. And there is an empire that's kind of left behind a remnant rule. And our players will be taking the roles of houses, which are essentially factions or groups within this city trying to rebuild and also gain power and jockey against one another for control and position and the resources that come from this great city. It's a game that will move between the house level and sort of the high level down to zoom in to the ground level with our characters and move back and forth. If you've seen any other legacy games, you'll have seen that structure. But this one adds a little more, I guess I want to say, a little more structure to it. It makes it a little bit easier to know, okay, when do we need to move between those levels? But we'll see how that is. This is the first time for some of those mechanics. So let me talk about our cats very basically and our safety tools, and then what we're going to be doing today. So the game is about building the city. Now, in the book, they say you can go and build the city from kind of a blank map, but I've gone ahead. They provide you with a sample map, and for the players in that folder that I sent you the link to, you will see that I've put the map in a lightened version on the Google Drawings there. And I'll screen share that for people at home so they can see what I'm talking about. We'll be marking up this map. It's in Google Draw, which is not the best tool in the world because it's very easy to muck with other people's objects. But this is what we are going to write on and mark up and so on. I've tried to lighten it so it's easier to put things on there. So this city that we see here that we're going to fill in details on is what we're going to be struggling over. And it's going to be about our characters, as I said, jockeying for position within that. The approach, I said, is houses and then people on the ground. We're going to move back and forth. They call zooming up and down between those levels. Typically, what will happen in this game is there'll be a phase where we kind of do a house phase. And there's a currency called decrees that the GM says, okay, everybody gets 1 decree or 2 decrees or whatnot. And decrees are a currency you use to activate certain house moves. Certain other things you can do for free. Reactions are obviously for free, but we kind of do a phase of those. And then we'll check in at the ground level to see where people are at and do some things there. Maybe we focus in on a particular character's story. One of the interesting things about the legacy games is that if we zoom in, say, on Tyler's character, and the other sort of representative characters from the other houses aren't present, you'll make up quick characters that are from Tyler's house, and you'll be running along with them in whatever sort of story. And we do a real quick check-in story, and those characters may be really interesting, may develop their lives their own. I've seen it where a quick character ends up becoming a character that the player runs as sort of the successor to their own character later on down the road. So we're going to be moving through that back and forth. There are going to be crises that are facing us. And at some point we may say, okay, I think we've dealt with the crisis that has really been threatening the city. And I think that now time is going to pass. And there's a mechanic for what sort of is called the turning of the age, where we move forward, we resolve some things, and we go down the road a little bit. Your character may retire, your character may change, it can evolve. We'll figure out how much time has passed. Each character has a role, and they can evolve in the roles of their life as they go along. There's another trigger for the big change. There are some big projects. We're not going to talk about those today, but one of the goals that you can have is finding one of these big projects to build in the city. And when that actually gets built, that like, woof, that pushes things forward, and all kinds of stuff explode out from that. So that's kind of the possible cycles of play. Now, this game is tone-wise something we need to discuss. Before and in the sort of beginning of your game thing, they talk about the palette, and we're going to come to that and talk about that and safety in just a second. But I want to mention one thing. This is a game that has a little more, I don't want to say PvP, but a little more potential player competition than other games. Often I find that the players negotiate the space for that. People don't really. I've never seen players attack. Well, no, I have seen a player attack one, but that was when Maria was playing. But anyway, that was a sort of unusual thing. Most of the time, there is sort of push back and forth. There's some mechanisms for applying diplomatic pressure, for applying social pressure. We're going to be playing along. If at any point you're uncomfortable with the level of PvP, at the level of player competition that we've engaged with, then I want you to X card to stop us, and I want us to have that conversation about what's the appropriate level. I have found that we usually find that level in play, but I do want to make it really clear that I recognize that that's a potential hazard for this kind of game. What we find is people will be pushing their agenda while helping other people. Tyler's a master of this, of getting what he wants while pushing other people up. So that's important. So we're going to keep that in mind. So I'm actually moving to step one, where they talk about the palette in the game building thing, but I want to kind of flip it, and let's start with safety. I know I've played with a number of you, and I know that you're familiar with this, but I want to go through this again. We have a layered set of safety tools. Number one is lines and veils. Lines being anything that we've marked as we're not going to be touching on that in the game at all, and veils being anything that, should we start to move towards that, we're going to fade to black on it. There is a tab in the character keeper that marks the lines and veils. You have the opportunity to add to that as you wish. You can just put a checkbox by line or veil, or if there's something else you want to add that's not on that list, please feel free to do that. This is the sort of the base of our discussion here. And while this is a living document and we're going to evolve, you have a chance to add on as we go through. I'll just really quickly, before we go too much further, talk about what people have already marked as lines and veils. So we have lines on harm to mundane animals, homophobia, racism, sexual assault, and torture. So those are things that are just not, that's not for our game. It's not what we're playing, not the space we're going to be involved in. Oh, and dental horror, which is mine. I sometimes forget to put that in. And veils, harm to supernatural beasts or monsters, harm to children, any kind of sexual content, the Buffy rule, spiders, or suicide. So those are the base things. Now, to complement that, we have the X card. And the X card in an online environment can be a little tricky, but basically this gesture or saying X card is probably the best way to do it, because we have found that the chat often gets overlooked because people are looking all over the screen. So I recommend using one of those things. If you X card something, we will stop, no questions asked. The only question that we might have to engage with is where do we need to cut to get to the material. And this can be for material or discussion that you find objectionable, problematic, phobic, any of those kinds of things. It can be for material that you think, well, we've started to head towards a line or a veil and we haven't recognized it, or the implications of what is being said here implies that. I'll give you an example actually from last night's game. We were playing a game, we were playing animals in a post-apocalyptic situation, and we're playing dogs. And one of the questions was, well, we found these birds in a cage. Are these birds characters? And we're like, oh yeah, of course they're characters. And then we had to stop and somebody said, look, the implication of that is that any kind of prey that we're dealing with, because that's a factor in the game, would also be characters and be intelligent and be able to talk with us. And so we kind of rolled back on that and changed that. And it was a good point, like if something would change up what we're doing dramatically. It's also if something is wildly off tone, if something is super grimdark and we haven't set our tone level there, or the other end of the spectrum. Last thing I'll say about the X card is if the first couple of times something pops up, you're like, I'm cool with that. And later on, you're like, I have changed my mind. I am no longer cool with that. It has started to become irritating to me. It is absolutely legit to X card it later. That's something Rich Rogers taught me. And I think it's a really important point to keep in mind. Lastly, we have an open door policy in the sense that should you need to step away for any reason, you're welcome to step away. We'd love it if you said, I'm going to be back or not, but you're not obliged to. If you need to take a break, you can do that. We will be taking breaks, at least one, maybe two breaks during this session, and that'll happen normally in every session. So those are the safety tools that we have that we're going to use to keep us on the same page. So the question I have is, and the book says for us to kind of talk about what the PG level is of this. And the examples they give, I mean, do we want a clean, family-friendly game that is more sort of Final Fantasy, some Final Fantasies, or like they mentioned the Shannara Chronicles, or do we want it a little grittier like the Banner Saga or Marco Polo, or do we want it restricted? And they list Rome and the Dragon Age trilogy as restricted, which I'm okay. Not sure Dragon Age would be in that book, but whatever. Maybe it's just because they make all the women busty. I don't know. So Tyler, let me start with you. Thoughts on kind of where you would like to be, and I'm going to check in with each person here. And
I would prefer we head towards the grittier side than the family-friendly side. You know me, I like some grimdark, but I would be happy in that middle spot too. I don't want it. This world doesn't feel very light and airy to me.
Okay,
but that's just, again, I'll play anything.
So definitely towards the middle of the spectrum. Daniel, how do you feel about what you'd like to play or what you're comfortable playing with?
I think Tyler and I align quite a bit in that. I think I tend to sort of default towards the grittier, but I'm happy being anywhere in the spectrum as long as I know where I need to be.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I kind of like that middle ground, but playing a little bit into the dark side of it, because there needs to be like a little edge to teeter toward.
So definitely more modern PG-13 than older PG-13. Okay, Patrick.
Yeah, not so much the Goonies, but like beyond that.
Okay, that seems fair. Patrick, what do you think? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I think like given our lines and veils, I'm comfortable with swerving into the horror sort of like grittier aspects. There's certainly the like war stories possibilities of this world is something that definitely appeals to me, and that can deal in a lot of potentially physical or potentially psychological horror or trauma type stuff. And I sort of like that idea.
So we definitely have these horror elements, these darker elements. We can lean into them, and we'll use the lines and the X card to help us define those boundaries as we go along. That seems good, and we'll negotiate that. We'll find out some of those things as we approach. So what we have is I think it's a 6-step process, which includes some roles and things. So we're going to start. Oh, also, let me say this, Daniel, you may not play with me. I have a terrible Hoosier accent. If at any point I'm talking too fast or I say "rut" or something and you can't get what I'm saying, as has happened, please make me stop and repeat myself. Do not feel bad if that happens.
Sounds perfect. I was born in South Bend, so I probably have a bit of a Hoosier accent myself.
I'm in South Bend.
Are you really?
Oh yeah.
My parents live out in Goshen, and yeah, I'm.
Oh, holy wow!
Yeah.
That's wild.
Small
Yeah,
world.
I'm born, raised here, went to Notre Dame, all that. So
Yeah.
The other three of us are good South Carolina boys.
oh, yeah, they're
so
on the same area.
Well, I live in North Carolina now, so I think I'm spread out
Okay, that
amongst
is
all of you pretty well.
that is really wild. So let's go to step 2. We're going to walk through the process that's given the book, and this is what is called the city foundations. And we've talked a little bit about this beforehand. I sent some things to the players. Oh, also Daniel, Patrick has some auto flash stuff, so you may see some things flash up on Patrick's screen. It's not necessarily that he'll be right back, but he's got it set to do that.
I'm trying to be good about hand motions, but yeah, it does get over eager about reading some things.
So the first thing that we're going to choose is the imperial rule and the Kitrian occupation of our city. The city is Montara, and we have the surrounding lands, and we have that map that I've mentioned that's available in Google Drawings, and we can pop over to that. We're going to work out some things about the Kitrian occupation and how do they rule and what crimes did they commit. And we're going to choose 2 of the 3 things. I've mentioned this to the players already, and answer the questions. And for each question, we're going to mark a point on the city map and describe a moment when the answer became clear. Now, we've settled on corruption. And then it's a question, the other 2, of negligence versus cruelty. And I would like to actually lean towards negligence as the other one, put my sort of GM split on that. So I'd like to have it be corruption and negligence as the 2 items there. Corruption ate away at this empire's soul, leaving a callous husk in its place. The Kitrians would ignore their own laws, treaties, accept and even demand bribes, and shamelessly luxuriate in opulence stolen from their subjects. Now, what we're about to do is dive into lore that we don't know. There's a lot of lore in the book that, it seems to suggest we're going to refer to. We're going to make everything up. So and these questions are going to sound like I'm asking you to give us things that you don't know. I don't know them because it's a thick book. So we're going to go that. So Tyler, I'm going to start with you with this first corruption question.
All righty.
So the first question is, who among the locals do you think benefited from imperial corruption? What kind of group would have benefited from that?
I think it's that. I think it's the middle class merchant class.
Okay.
Really were able to come into their own, because where before there'd been a rather solid nobility and very stratified culture, with the ability to just pay for favor, they were able to rise above what they could have in the past. Now, it's pretty terrible to have to bribe your way up, but it beats the hell out of never being able to get up.
Right. So do you want to mark on the map someplace like where the local merchants guild would have been, or the Montar and sort of the guild that kind of rose up during that?
I will. we know how terrible I am with maps, but I will do that thing.
Okay.
I'm going to use this little symbol, and I'll go to shrink it on down, even more than that. There.
Oh, you little.
Yeah. Let's give it a color. They're money, so let's make them goldy.
Nice. Do you have a name you want to call that? You can have Patrick put in the text.
Yeah, let's the House of Coin.
House of Coin. Excellent.
And we're saying that's like a guild house, right? That's
we're imagining that these are merchants that have maybe they aren't like the official guilds that were there before, but they're certainly a group of them that benefited and were given station because of that.
Excellent.
So Daniel, I'm going to ask you this next question. How did the Imperials prey on the city's poorest? What did they do to the city's poorest?
I think maybe some indentured servitude.
Ooh.
That fits within our lines and veils, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Essentially putting them in a kind of economic bondage that moved into indentured servitude. Was there a particular poor neighborhood or a location that organized this? Let's put something on the map for that. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm not sure. So it sounds like there's been sort of a lot of struggle in the city between the Kitrians and the other folks. Whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm kind of ambivalent as to whether this would be like a sort of like a economic servitude or maybe like a conscription sort of thing. Maybe they needed soldiers to some fodder.
I like the idea.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question, Daniel. Just for my purposes, understanding where you're going. Are we looking at something from your perspective, kind of like the situation of the coal miners in like the early 1900s in Appalachia, to where basically they weren't technically like locked down and tied up, but practically they were stuck. They were tied up with all this cycle of debts and company script and all that sort of stuff. Or are we talking about like indentured servants, like the people that were shipped over from like Ireland and England during the early colonial period in America, where they were basically effectively bought and sold? Their contracts were at least, and the contracts were, could be arbitrarily extended by the people that own the contracts, that sort of thing. Like, is it contractual or is it just practical?
I think if it were economic, I think I'd be leaning more towards practical, probably.
Okay.
So more of the former, less of the latter. And I think that might tie in interestingly with the House of Coin. But if we as a group are more interested in sort of like a conscription situation,
I like the practical suggestion that you're making there. I like that. What do you suppose is the instrument of that? Is there a place that people have kind of been forced to go, or a neighborhood that represents that?
That is a great question. I think probably it would make sense to have some sort of like a geographic area, some kind of a ghetto, sort of thing. Yeah. And maybe maybe you are relegated to it if you can't afford to pay your debts, of which there are numerous ways to accrue.
Absolutely. So go ahead and put some kind of marker, sign, or symbol on the map that will say this is where people fall back to, are forced to, in the worst of the economic devastation.
All right. I will work on figuring out how to do that. If
Okay.
you want to move on to the next person,
Sure.
because I have not used this before.
Okay. Yeah, there are things for doing little shapes, and we often just choose a shape and drop that on there.
Okay.
Chris, what jewel of Montaran infrastructure, which it opened up a whole question about what Montaran infrastructure looks like. What jewel of Montaran infrastructure was rendered useless by this rampant corruption?
I think that Montara had this beautiful like open sculpture garden that was considered like the pride of the Montaran nobility. They had built it and made it public just so that everyone could come and marvel at their generosity, at their patronage of the arts, etc. And you had this huge garden of all these statuaries by famous sculptors from all over the Kitrian Empire and all over the rest of the continent, that had been bought and then placed here or had been commissioned for that space specifically. And that rampant corruption and maybe negligence had slowly sort of withered away at the infrastructure that supported that. Like all this outdoor statuary requires obvious upkeep on a yearly basis, just from regular force of nature stuff. But the war and the stresses of actual conflict basically drew away all those resources that hadn't been already taken by the corruption and graft and bribery and all of that sort of stuff. So these statues are all just sort of like broken, disheveled. They look like they basically look like a lot of old ancient Greek and Roman statuary that had not been preserved. So it's almost like a graveyard of good sculpture.
Real symbol of that decay, physical presence. So where is this garden, and what do you want to call it?
I'd like to say that the sculpture garden would be kind of in the middle of the city. Like it was kind of the noble families that put it together, like bought this big chunk in the center of the city and put it there so that
we got a big blank
who came
map
to the city would have to see it.
You pick a place and put that on there with some cool symbol. Do you have a name for it?
Let's see. How about the Garden of the Foundation?
Garden of the Foundation, nice.
And let me see if I can find a good space to put it here.
Sure.
Roughly, this map represents the whole city, or is the city just the space kind of towards the middle of the map?
This is the city, and then sort of the outskirts surrounding it. But I think you can put anything anywhere. I think the city is huge. I think we ought to like feel free to fill in any of these blank spaces. And we're going to assume that the top of the map is classically north, which leads to the front lines of the war, and the south leads on to Ilvash, the sort of the overseers places. So Patrick, the next thing is negligence, and negligence towards their subjects was a constant. Kitrian occupation had no care or concern for the citizens' well-being, seeking only to strip this place bare and send its people to die in war. This is the other way the empire ruled. So which district burnt down after harsh crackdowns on famine-fueled riots?
So I think maybe the Kitrians, like, they had their own supply lines. This is an whole active war, and there's a home homeland, kingdom, or empire area that they're being supplied from. So they never really worried much about food production and distribution. So I think there's like a market and restaurant area where sort of like things were gathered from surrounding farmlands, things were cooked for people that, you know, were living city life and didn't cook things. And that's where a lot of the protests ended up being centered. And in retaliation, the Kintrians were just like, well, we have our supply lines secure, so we don't need to worry about if things go a little wrong in the market, and things went very wrong in the market.
So where do you think this market is that had this crackdown and burnt?
So I think maybe a little like north of our ziggurat structure here.
Okay.
There's that big like river running through everything. So I think a lot of the growing lands would be centered up along the river. So broken thing.
I'm going to grab this background and shift it back up a little bit. There we go. Do you have a name for this district?
I think it had another name before, but it's never really been repaired or brought back all the way. So I think it's like people just call it like the burnt crust now.
Okay. I like that. So let me come back around to Tyler. Tyler, we have this river here. One of the questions, though, that's asked in the negligence thing is, where are the few remaining sources of potable water? And like, how difficult, how long do people have to walk to get to those locations? Is the river not potable, or is the river the only source of potable water, or what?
Can I ask? Our map there. The city is the whole area there. The city.
I think we can make the city as big as we want.
Okay.
So I think we can reach as far as we'd like. They've got all these weird things on here, so I think we ought to be able to encompass all of it.
Yeah. Then I think I like that weird structure at the north there.
Oh, okay. That sort of floating island with the tendrils.
Yeah. I think that because of the tendrils, I think that it cleans the water. The water that comes into that pool, that lake, is clean.
Oh, nice.
But as the river travels through the land, it picks up more and more of the awful and icky, the crystal dust and the, terrible things that plague our planet.
We've got all this idea about this, I think it's qualm as a sort of spiritual, magical energy that's out there that's polluting. So this is the place that people have to travel to get this purified water. What is that purifier called?
As in, what should I put on the map as a name?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to call it the Life Stream. That's not particularly imaginative, but
it's a Final Fantasy reference.
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm going to come back to you. The question is, did any conscripted Montarans return from the front? and how had the Kitrian war arts twisted them into better soldiers? So how were they changed if they returned?
So I think I like maybe the idea of the Kitrian war arts, excuse me, being sort of more mental and emotional than they were physical. So we weren't necessarily creating like more powerful warriors, just warriors that had no inhibitions. Maybe even warriors that instead of having to rely on training them to know who their enemy was or to hate to hate their enemy, they magically infused them with the inability to see their enemy as human or to see them as something else.
Ooh.
Right. So I think maybe in large part these things were irreversible. And the folks who can no longer fight because of injury or whatever have been returned and are basically kept in sort of a large prison / sanatorium.
Ooh, excellent. I think we should put that on the map. And what do you want to call that?
Oh goodness, I have no idea.
Okay.
Names are hard. I like open to suggestions.
I like you said sanatorium, which is such a great word, and I think whatever it is, it has to include that.
Okay.
Like the Black Sanatorium or something of that sort.
Be like Sanatorium of the Blind.
Oh,
sure, I love it.
That's
people
nice.
that can't see the real world anymore.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. Let's make this big. So I think maybe there's some like weird reverence with which they're treated. So maybe we can make this big building in the middle of this sort of forest up here, just to the southwest of the live stream. Maybe that can be it. And it's sort of both a prison, but also a monument to them.
Very nice. All right. So that will give us some sense of this. And the next question is, which guild? And some people expressed opinions, and 3 guilds were put at the top. And those were the nobles, the priests, and the soldiers. So, Chris, of those 3, which don't you want as the guild that remains from the empire that is overseen between the soldiers, priests, and nobles?
I don't think the nobles make as much sense because the Imperials had that sort of, and the old Montarans had that sort of noble system that we've talked about. So I like that idea of it being either the priests or the soldiers, not necessarily another group of nobles.
I think that makes sense. Patrick, is it the soldiers or the priests?
They're both good. So I think what it is from like a player perspective, if I was going to choose between those guilds to play, I'd probably play the priests. But I think if I want to stick with my idea of like, I like the war stories and the sort of tragedies that can be told there for the game, then why don't we have the soldiers there?
Okay. And there are 3 picks sort of to define the soldiers. And let me pick which one you think sums it up. I'll read it for people at home. Imperial forces razed the city in their hasty retreat, and the occupiers were able to march in glorious and unscathed. Or a fierce block-by-block battle devastated the city, and the occupying forces claimed that the Kitrian saboteurs still lurk in the shadows. Or A lengthy siege broke the city, and the occupying forces are hardened and battle scarred.
I'm sort of drawn to the middle one, if
Yeah.
for nothing else than the paranoia of the lingering saboteurs.
Absolutely. Saboteurs that are outside of being the Montarans, so that there are two forces potentially at battle there. I think that makes sense and offers a lot of really good choices. So, and I marked that on my notes. Circle that.
But it means a lot of destruction for the city.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of blank areas that might just be stuff that got destroyed. So that's going to give us the pieces of our map from the start that we kind of do as a group. And now we're going to move to picking houses. This is going to have a set of choices that you're going to make. I'll walk through what you're going to choose here. And I'm going to come back and look at these things. Tyler, you had mentioned the Crystal Crowned and the what was the other one?
Well, that one won't. It won't matter anymore because that was me looking at one of the guilds.
Oh, the guilds. So, do you want to do the Crystal Crowned?
I do.
Okay, because I noticed that it was one that no one else was like, "Ooh, I'm going to do that one."
Yes, they're right up my alley.
Okay. So, Daniel, let me come to you. You mentioned the Architects, the Order of Kiradar, and the Rebels. Having heard things that are going on, is there any one or two of those speaking to you more strongly now?
Not particularly. I think I'm still interested in all of them. I know that there were other folks who were interested in the Order of Kiradar and the Architects, though. So I would be happy to do Rebel Underground if that's what falls out of there.
Let's come to Chris, then we'll come back to you. Chris, you had the Untamed and the Order of Kiradar. Of those two, which one sounds more interesting to you?
I kind of think I kind of like the Untamed, because I feel like there's going to be, since we established that that sort of like that sort of indentured servant slash ghetto idea. I think the Untamed clan has a lot to tap into with that sort of stuff going on. So I think I'm leaning towards that one more so than the Kiradar.
Okay, so the Untamed for you. Patrick, you had Architects and the Tower of Vilos.
Yeah, they're both really, really
Both
good.
really good.
I have a great idea for a Velos singer, but
for what it's worth, I would love to see your Velos singer.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, awesome. Well, that leaves that hasn't narrowed your choice at all for you, Daniel.
Nope. Does anyone have anything that they think would fit best here? I'm kind of leaning towards, I think, the Rebel Underground.
I think the Rebel or the Architects are the two ones that would fit best with what we've got here.
Can I ask? Because let's see, if I remember correctly, the Rebel Underground is actually people from the kingdom who are still loyalists to the kingdom after they've been kicked out. Isn't that correct? They are an
ideological movement tending to the citizens' ills and fighting to restore liberty.
Yeah, the Empire, there's a remnant conspiracy of the Empire still left. That's one of them. This is the one that's more like our homegrown rebellion.
Gotcha. Oh, that does sound nifty.
And the Architects are builders and mystics and urban physicians seeking to heal this metropolis. I think they're both good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like both of those fit in well with the things we talked about so far. The Rebel Underground obviously fits in well with the workers' ghetto and that sort of whole situation. But I think that the Architects also fit in really well with sort of the conversation about there being saboteurs and things like that abounding. But I think I'm drawn towards the Rebel Underground, if that's cool with folks.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Right.
So I'm going to set you to grabbing your columns there on the Houses and Guild tab. You can pick out and give the name for your faction. It doesn't have to be, the Tower of Velos. You can rename it something else if you want. It's up to you how you want to do it, and then just mark the playbook. So you're going to be picking stats, traditions, doctrine, loyalties. Is it going to be a questions that we're going to put to other players? So we're going to go and pick your stats, your traditions, and your doctrine, and then we're going to stop and do those loyalty check-ins and get that established, because that's the order that they kind of have these things in. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to look through those and start making those choices, and then we'll come back.
Remind me again. I suppose I could go and look, but the people up north who had us for a while and now have been shoved off, is that the Empire or the Kingdom? You are muted, my love.
So
I think that's the northern is the empire, and the bottom is, and the southern is the kingdom, right?
yes, the southern is the kingdom, and the kingdom of Ilvash is the one that has people that are watching over us now.
Right. They've taken it from the Empire now. Okay,
Right.
cool. Excellent. Thank you. Sorry to keep interrupting, but my stat line pick does lay out a little something on kind of our history, because I start with zeros. I have one stat that for every roll my character or as I build the tower, I think might be it actually. No, it's roll for for each one of the rolls I get. That stat's gonna go up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm choosing the one with slight. So it meant the Empire conquered Montara by sorceress might.
Yeah, and I'll have everybody introduce their houses on those first things that you've picked before we go to making all those connection things.
Okay, cool.
I'm cheating and printing out copies of everything you guys have picked, so I have them ready at hand instead of picking through the PDF. All right. What I'm going to do is have everybody go through and talk about the picks that you've made for stats and what those mean, traditions, and the doctrine. We'll have everybody do that, and then we'll go back through, ask those history questions. You'll probably have an idea what you want for your loyalty pick, but we'll ask those history questions for that. So, Patrick, is it okay if I start with you, kind of go reverse order, so we don't put Tyler on the spot every moment?
Sure. I don't have any moves yet. We're not.
Tell
up
us
to that
about
yet,
your
are we?
stat picks, traditions, and your doctrine pick.
So, all right. So I went with my stats are reach 0, grasp 1, and sleight 1. And I went with that because the choice was if your rival in the city's underground is the disavowed 6th Guild of Ilvash.
Oh,
so I don't think the soldiers were entirely sent alone and without any smarter guidance. Yeah, I really like that one. So let's see. Populace is the initiates of a dark mystery religion. The mystery religion is somewhere between drugs and the music industry, so we'll get into that. Style, one of the choices was inhuman crystalline enhancements, so I didn't read the other choices.
Fair enough.
I'll figure out what that means, but there's a lot of, there's a lot of like warping and mutation in this world around the crystals, but I think there's a lot of like artistic inlaying of crystals that they do to their bodies. And then governance is commands relayed by a magic mirror, because part of the Tower of Velos is, of course, there's the Guild of Velos way off far away that are giving me instructions, and then I'm giving other people instructions, sort of thing. Magic mirrors, definitely.
Perfect. And your doctrine?
My doctrine, Dreamweavers. When you give a faction surplus mirage, gain a free use and perform a ritual, spending arts or lore as usual.
Oh, that is great. That is super dynamite. All right, well, we'll come back to you and have you go through your history questions once everybody's introduced. Chris, can you tell us about your Untamed?
Sure. I'm still kind of picking and knocking off some of the stuff, so I'll try and go through what I've got so far. Traditions-wise, the Untamed are farmers and ranchers with defiantly rustic and practical fashions. They are they have a code of ecological responsibility for their but it's like, my envisioning of it is that it's part code, like part religion, which may or may not sync up with any other religious traditions of either the Empire or the previous Montarans. So there is that. They are mysterious nomads. Even before the war, like their practice was to sort of travel between different homesteads depending on the seasons, and trying to grow or care for livestock or whatever each particular group and family in this big sort of mishmash of folks were doing. So there was a lot of just moving back and forth and around, and it kept the city from really keeping tabs on them in any way other than the trade relationships. Basically kept it, that's where their main connection to the city is, because they need stuff from the city really needs stuff from them, and that sort of dependent relationship sort of kept moving for them.
And then last question is you picked your stats. What was the tag on the stat line that you picked?
Let's see. I picked the one that sounded most interesting, which was the third pick, which says your reach +1, grasp 0, and sleight -1 if displaced citizens and refugees are struggling to survive and causing ecological disruption in the city's satellite settlements.
Ooh, nice.
I think that fits with the sort of ghettoization idea that Daniel had for the indentured servants folks. And I think like some of those, you have folks that are trying to basically desert from that to leave it, and you have this this sort of rush to the outskirts of the city, which hadn't necessarily been a problem before. That is putting a lot of extra like environmental stresses on these zones around the city, especially since the occupying force, according to our earlier decisions, had to do basically a hard like block to block march through the city, which I'm presuming probably fits with what they probably did to the outskirts of the city too, which is where the Untamed clan has its roots. So basically it's just a huge mess everywhere, and the folks that are on the edges of that are sort of pushing into what was traditionally the clan's territory, and it's the environment, especially now, is just not equipped to deal with that influx of effectively like completely untrained population. They're a burden on the land, and they're not able to contribute to it because they don't know how to. So
excellent.
They're just more mouths to feed.
Awesome. We'll come back to you to ask you those history questions. Daniel, tell us about the Rebel Underground.
All right. So I think they're kind of a labor union. So traditions are a ragtag band of desperate revolutionaries. They're completely ordinary except for a hidden sigil somewhere on your person. And they make their decisions through group debate and consensus decision making.
Nice.
So I think they're sort of like an anarchisty labor union. And they operate in like little cells or affinity groups and make decisions in spokes councils and things like that. So I chose for stats, I chose reach +1, grasp and sleight of 0, which is, so most of these choices seem to revolve around like how long ago the conquest occurred and how imminent an uprising is. So I chose sort of a middle ground. So the conquest is a bitter memory. So I think life has sort of settled a bit since the conquest. And the resistance is dug in for the long haul.
Oh, nice, nice. And your doctrine?
Doctrine is freedom from chains. So when you erase a need inflicted from the city's rulers, gain a free conspire action.
Oh, nice.
So I think I'm seeing that like we have sort of decided that the conscripted folks in the ghetto are there to provide for their betters, right? So I think that they're probably their primary sort of tactic right now is to basically sabotage those needs, right? So they don't exist any longer.
Nice.
And I was kind of thinking, like, since things seem to revolve around this river a lot, maybe there's some kind of like a panning operation going on out there, or some kind of like there's mountains and things like that. So maybe there's some kind of like crystal debris.
Yeah, if the river's polluted, as we said, then that's probably getting those things out of there. That's a really good idea.
Right. I also feel like some of that could maybe put the Rebel Underground in contention with the Untamed clan, because the Rebel Underground may be contributing sort of to that sort of ecological downslide, right?
Nice.
And the Untamed clan may be opposed to them, even if they sort of share some like kind of moral ethical standpoints as far as being the underdog.
Awesome. We'll come back to you on those history questions then. Tyler, the Crystal Crowned.
Yes, the Endless Primarchy.
Ooh, nice name.
And we are the nobles that were here before kingdom, before empire, the true rulers of the city. Our traditions, we have tortured bodies in the sense that they are aged and decrepit and mutated, kept alive by fading magic. We have been here forever. We wear our ceremonial armor with animal masks worked into the helm, and heavy, clunky type jewelry, large gem type jewelry. You rarely will see a Primarch without their full armor on. More than likely, if you do, they're not advertising that they're a Primarch at the moment. And we are led by the mumblings of ancient dreaming elders because we respect age. Age is one of the things we have in abundance. And so the wisdom of our elders is to be followed. And it's, works well that they aren't particularly clear. So there's lots of interpretation that can go from the mumblings of our elders.
And your stat pick, what does that tell us?
The way we're set up is we have zeros and everything. Actually, I have a -1 at the moment in sleight. But sleight will go up with my roll for my hero. And this is we took this stat line saying the Empire conquered Montara by sorcerous might.
Ooh. Good. That's good detail. And what's your doctrine?
Predators of the dust. Name one thing you must take from others for consumption. And we feast, we drink the tears of others.
Oh yeah. So they work a little bit differently in that they're heroes. For every roll that's marked, they get one of these ways of gaining an extra deathless torpor harm box, like we're playing vampire. I love it. Awesome. So we'll come back to you on the history questions. Let's swing back around. Tower of Vilos. Let's do all of those history questions, and then we'll move on to the next person.
All right. Here's some things. Okay. Is there a place for them on the?
This is under notes and wonders is I think where you're going to put that, because these are just going to help you make decisions later, but you're not actually tracking these in any way for mechanically rather.
All right. So ask for volunteers to add their faction under social influence and check the appropriate box.
Oh yeah, you do. Some of these do have influence. Do give influence. Okay. I apologize. It's tiny little numbers.
So first one is, which of you has waged a past campaign against the tower's influence?
And if they choose that, they gain influence over you.
Yep.
Anyone want to have influence over the Tower of Vilos at the start?
I will certainly take it if no one else is wanting it. I could see where we would have had conflict with.
Okay, so you waged a past campaign against the tower's influence. You have influence over us, and you get to describe the truce that ended hostilities.
See if you like this. I think we saw, it's the dream, isn't it? And that's what your commodity is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw your influence with the dream spreading in a way that really would upset our view of being in control of everything. And I I think that it was just our conflict was difficult, and there was no real upper hand to it, particularly. And so we came to a truce of, see if you like this, that you would, to our house, you would sell to a broker. And therefore we would have someone who controlled who was grabbing it with our house, but that the rest of the city was yours to do with as you will. What do you think of that?
So you're not coming to the live concerts, you're just distributing the recordings?
Well, is that how you're planning the dream to be? Is it performance based?
Yeah, it's part of it. I like the idea if you wanted to take up the like distribution rights for the recordings, the physical sort of things.
And again, it's just within.
Oh, you're muted, Lowell.
So you're the Lich Kings of Spotify is now what I'm hearing.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for influence, Tyler will mark that on his sheet. You don't mark that on yours because you get a separate track, and people can have influence, both ways. It can work that way. So what's the next one, Patrick, that you have?
The next one is, which of you holds our mirage crystals as a central aspect of your rites and ceremonies? Then I'll get influence over you.
I think it would make sense for this sort of weird ecological religion that I think the nomads and the untamed clans have. Like they use crystals in this sort of like natural attunement ritual, and they've for a long time, one of the things that they've traded for is these really nice crystals that the Tower of Vilos has been able to create.
Nice. Yeah, the crystals, the mirage, it's Colm arts and it's nebulous still, but it involves us imbuing memories, emotions, particular feelings into these crystals. So maybe we've worked up and we make particular, like this certain type of crystal memory helps with this ritual, and this one helps with that.
Awesome. And then the last thing to tell everyone.
Clan have influence on. All right, and then tell everyone, one of the cabals is our rivals in the underworld. We have an ongoing conflict with them. And that's our rivals are the unsubstantiated Sixth Guild of Ilvash.
Okay.
So I asked the group what criminal practice the cabal controls in Montar.
Ooh. Ideas for what they control?
Let's see. If you're doing kind of a drug, and we have kind of a heavy military around here, so it makes me think that like thuggery and protection rackets aren't probably the best set. Do we think prostitution?
I have an idea that's actually sort of more fantasy cyberpunky in the sense that maybe they control sort of the illegal street embedding of crystals and magic, like the sort of the more dangerous stuff. Like they control the racket in that kind of thing.
Like body mod?
Like body mod or embedding magics and things, stuff that the soldiers would want to have control of. What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah. And like location magics and sort of things that warp areas or have an effect on a neighborhood or something like that.
Yeah, they're working in really dangerous, uncontrolled Ripper magic kind of thing.
Nice. Their sort of supreme enemy, besides me, would definitely be the homeowners association.
Yes. They send them nasty notes though. Excellent. Let's come to the Untamed. Chris is big. Oh, there we go. Oh, and then Chris suddenly read. Chris, let's do your history questions for the Untamed. What's your first one?
Okay, my first one is, which of you tried to claim what's ours, underestimating our mastery of this land? You say what caused the bloodshed, and then I will say how peace was achieved.
There's no trading of influence in this one.
Nope.
I can see the Rebel Underground maybe. Let's see, what would...
It could involve all these refugees that have been sort of flooding into the outskirts that would be prime recruits for the Rebel Underground, I would think.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe we clashed over some recruitment.
Well, and the fact that basically all these people you're recruiting are still sort of basically burdening the ecosystem around the city, which from the nomad's perspective can't really take much more of that. So that maybe that touched off things.
So how
Sure,
did you
I love it.
to resolve that? How was the peace achieved?
What I think happened would be that the nomads and the Rebel Underground sort of came to an understanding about basically creating almost like a sort of reciprocal relationship. Like some of these refugees maybe just wanted to get out of the city and maybe wanted to join the nomads or something like that. And others are still harboring like this attachment to the city, and maybe we sort of created this sort of underground pipeline to where like the nomads, if people are coming out into the territory, like the nomads kind of initially sort of encounter them, and if the nomads think that they aren't quite there for the nomad life and are still too attached to the city, maybe we sort of like point them in the underground's direction. Maybe the underground has some sort of recruitment that's not like Rebel Underground are us, but more like maybe like a charity front or something like that, in these outlying settlements or ghettos that the nomads can send people to. And from the nomads' perspective, it gets these people out of our hair, because they're generally like angry agitators, and the nomad culture is not ready for the sort of urban agitation types. Whereas that's exactly what the Rebel Underground needs. So
does that work for you, Daniel? Awesome. And then what is the other
absolutely.
part of your clan statement? Your history there.
Okay, the telling to everybody, an important cabal splintered off from us years ago. We have an alliance with them, and work out with the GM what difference of opinion or practice caused the schism.
What do you think would have created a splinter faction of your people?
I'm thinking it may have been the the use of these crystals that we've been getting from Velos.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the folks after a while started to see the crystals as a crutch to what should otherwise be like a pure nature religion. They consider the crystals to be impure and sort of a mockery of what the cult calls for, as far as union with nature, because that group sees the crystals as completely unnatural and a violation of the local environment. Which maybe. And the standard group was like, anything that helps you in your psyche, sort of, reach communion with the land, is something that can be used.
Okay.
And as long as you don't abuse it. But there's the purists who are like, no, you can't use anything that's not, directly from the earth. The crystals are alien and evil and blah, blah, blah.
And you'll put the sort of the crystal iconoclast, these purists, on your thing and mark them as having an alliance with them.
Yeah, and I think we sort of eventually we came to effectively probably just a détente. It's like,
Yeah.
We don't really like each other, but we still like each other more than we dislike each other less than we dislike other people.
The
Kind of thing.
eco values were more important. That makes sense. Let's come to the Rebel Underground. Let's see. What's your history statement?
Sure. So, which of you relied on us to gain your current standing? We have an alliance. They say how you formed this alliance, and you say why it endures still.
I could see that with us because you're kind of wanting to throw out any foreign influence, and that would leave us.
I think it would be really neat to sort of have like a spiky relationship with the people who used to sort of be viewed like that we used to view as the oppressor.
I think that could be interesting. You like that?
I think that could be fun.
Okay, so you'll mark down the endless primarchy as an alliance for you.
Do I mark that as well?
I have to check if alliances are reciprocal. I think they are. So I think
They are too.
I think so.
Yeah, it's my impression.
Right.
And then what's the other? To tell everyone.
Yeah. So where there are hierarchies, there are those who support our creed. We gain influence over each and every one of you that has influence or dominion over us. Each other player must describe their most rebellious or free-thinking spirit, and you say how your rebellion fascinates them.
Ooh.
So we sort of, is everyone coming up with sort of like an NPC kind of thing? Is that what this
Yeah,
is?
I think they're describing a little who are the rebels within their faction, who might kick back against the established hierarchy, and if anyone has influence over you, which I don't think anyone does right now, but we still got the primarchy to go, then you would gain influence over them. But Patrick, who are the rebels within the Tower of Velos? Or free thinkers, or most free thinkers as well.
Yeah, I think there's sort of like a house line of we work with the Mirage and we work with people to calm them and soothe them and make everything all right. And I think the sort of like rebel or firebrand to that would be someone who's trying to use Mirage to agitate or push for something or to rile people up.
Nice. And what about among the Untamed? Who's the most rebellious or free thinking amongst them? We've already established that you have these iconoclasts that are split off from you, Chris. But who remains amongst your people, amongst the main line, that would be most rebellious or most free thinking?
I think there's a faction that is taken to spending more and more time like in the refugee settlements, like when we go in for trade and stuff like that. We have like a group of folks who regularly do that sort of thing because they like to spend time in town, or they just have found they like some of the city people and are meeting friends, that sort of thing. And you've got this sort of like this sort of go-between class that has sort of developed, that entertains a lot of the rebel underground sort of philosophies and opinions about the local power structure, both under the empire and under the kingdom now. So and they also are, tend to migrate philosophically into this sort of agitation, that the nomads are generally just like, stay away from our stuff, and if you come at us, we'll just disappear into the mountains and the valleys and forests and stuff like that. And if you come after us, well, we'll just chew you up as you come. Whereas this other group is like, has sort of gotten into the mindset of the refugees and the rebels a lot more. So there's that strong sort of go-between class that's, the folks who come in and do all the trading, meet at the meet the merchants, meet the vendors, meet the charity workers and trade with them. And they've gotten kind of a lot of the rebel underground's philosophies and ways of thinking into their heads now.
Tyler, what about? Oh, go. I'm sorry.
Oh, do you think it'd be cool, Chris, if maybe they started dressing more modern than some of their counterparts and things like that, right? Like they sort of like.
I imagine they would. Oh yeah, that they would start to. A few of them would start to wear things that aren't completely like practical, because the nomads are like super practical in their dress. Like they are minimal ornamentation sort of folks. So maybe these folks have started to, like, they'll come in with like brightly colored scarves that they bought off of some crafts person in the refugee areas or something like that, or they'll trade for some for like a cool like necklace to go along with one of the crystals that they use in their rituals, or something else like that. So
awesome. Tyler, what is the rebellious or free thinking faction part within your faction?
There are some amongst the Primarchs who don't really know if it's a great idea to listen to the mumblings of people from centuries and centuries ago, and have kind of looked at how Empire and Kingdom have ruled and said that maybe living on high and just telling people what to do without ever really knowing them isn't a very good way to rule. Now, it's a tiny minority, as fools will be, but there is a liberal wing to the Primarchs who are starting to believe that maybe there should be a more direct relationship with the ruled.
Excellent. Tyler, let's come to your history questions. I do want to make this requires a little bit of context for other people. You have something called the Last Redoubt.
I do. Which
is a fortress, a quote unquote sprawling, ancient, and eldritch fortress. So, okay. So let's hear your history questions.
All righty. My first is, which one of you first found power in the confines of the redoubt? We have influence over you. They say what the price you paid for that power was. They say what the price you paid for that power. So someone would have come to our mystic fortress and learned and gained power from it.
Oh, can it be me?
Certainly.
Yeah, I want that.
Absolutely.
All right.
And because he takes influence over you, because of your move, gain influence over him.
Yes.
I love it.
It's good stuff.
All right.
What price did you pay?
That is an interesting question.
So many tears.
I think that's a given. I think the tears are a given. I think maybe we made some kind of an arrangement that when the rebel underground is finally victorious in overthrowing the oppressor, they will basically pledge allegiance to the Primarchy in return for their help. So it's like a short-term, short-term alliance to toss aside the current oppressors, and then a longer-term devil's bargain.
Very nice.
That's nice. That it shows why we're so tightly tied together now.
Mhm.
All right. My next is which one of you was saved by a strange and unique creature? You have influence over us as we desperately wish to know more. They describe their fleeting glimpse of their savior.
Ooh, that sounds like something mysterious nomads would encounter.
All right.
What was this fleeting glimpse you saw of this thing?
I think it is. I think it was some sort of. I think it was some sort of like almost elemental in appearance. Some sort of like some sort. It looked like a great elk, but the antlers were of the most the deepest and just this. I'm trying to remember what the what the colors would be associated in this world. But let's just say it was the antlers were just this sort of unnatural purple. So this stag with these huge purple crystal antlers and eyes that glowed with the same deep light that just that basically like maybe ran off some a troop of the soldiers during that last conflict, I guess.
Nice.
And that's what that, and nobody's been verifiably able to see it since that one appearance, but all the nomads say it's still out there.
We must know more about it.
And finally, Tyler, what is your tell everyone?
What I tell everybody is one of the city's cabals used to be our servants, with many of their kin still within the redoubt. We have a conflict ongoing.
Ooh, what do you want to call those guys?
Well, it could be one of the unused houses, right?
It could be one of the unused houses. It could be something you make up. What do you want?
I want it to be the Order of Kradar.
Okay.
Or Kiradar.
The monster hunters?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was part of both the strength and the part of how our city was so glorious is that we had this group that could fight these titans, these terrors that were out there, and they worked for us. And now they don't, and we don't like it at all.
Perfect. All right, we're going to take 10. We're going to take our break here. When we come back, you're going to make your final choices about resources, house moves, and we'll kind of do a quick check-in on that, and then we'll roll forward to some more stuff we're going to be adding to the maps, making up some things on that. So take 10, and then we'll be back. Tyler, do you want to tell us about your moves?
Certainly. I have picked my... Oh, why is it all... It went weird. Okay.
Oh yeah, because there's a title line and then there's the move line there.
Oh, I get you. Okay. So yeah, I have the Last Redoubt, which is my citadel. It's massive and huge and wrapped up with lots of power, eldritch mighty sort of stuff. Something keeps happening. I keep dipping. And I invoke, whenever I wish, I invoke my house's move to gain one of the features, replacing... Frame with things to stop. Son of a gun. There we go. Replacing the previous one. Sorrow, belligerence, horror, and revelry are the various ones. And when it's sorrow, an ethereal garden provides deep solace. Belligerence, lightning pummels its outer grounds. Horror, echoes of the past offer counsel and omens. And revelry, its sprawling halls present a lavish feast. And then I have a defense I control, so I'll get to mark one of these. No, I'm sorry, that I can't control. And I believe it's mists that leave the unwary astray.
Okay.
So I will mark it with a color. And then choose a threat that lurks within it. And that
Can I
one's
offer a suggestion?
Sure.
So you said that you were interested in the Order of Kiradar, right? And maybe had a relationship with them. So maybe one of these two things, the defense you can't control or the threat that lurks within, is one of those giant monsters.
Yeah, let's do monsters that infest the lower levels.
Nice.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
And then what do you think you're going to take for your other move? Because you get one more.
Yeah, I do.
This is not a hard and fast thing, but just what are you leaning towards?
Yeah, hang on a sec. Ooh. So, looking at it, I really like. I like the Ghost Parliament. I think it's pretty cool. Let's see here. I think I'm going to take the Ghost Parliament.
Okay.
When you research and consult the preserved remains of your ancestors, they reveal their wisdom about the past, establish a connection between two existing factors, and declare the nature of their connection: reverence, hatred, or kinship. Crowned heroes are always considered to be an existing factor for this.
Okay. So that gives us just about everything on that set of things. The surpluses and needs we can figure out, as we go and play along. But I think we've kind of got things pretty well set there. Does that seem right to you? Okay. Then let's go to Daniel, to the Rebel Underground. What did you take for your core move? Oh, sorry. What's your core move, and then what did you take for your pick?
Sure. So let me make sure I understand what I'm doing here.
Sure.
So my core move is Mighty Renegades, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter that you are everyday people. Together you will change the course of history. As long as you are not under anyone's dominion, when you have one of surplus, recruits, morale, or leadership, and gain a second, you also get the third.
Oh, that's nice.
So I don't know what surpluses do, but I imagine it's great to have them.
Absolutely. For you and Chris's benefit, when in doubt, if you're like, I don't know what to do, if there's a means to get a surplus, that's always a good strategy, because it's sort of a supremely useful resource in play.
Okay.
Of the other moves there, are any of those kind of appealing to you for the Rebel Underground?
Yeah, all of them.
Oh yeah.
I think I like. This Is Our City. So when those who fight for the revolution come under attack, you may describe them either withstanding a spirited assault, or retreating to a more defensible position, or counterattacking against all hope, or evacuating their civilians, or conceding critical parts of the battlefield. And once they've done 3 of these things, rebels and their allies emerge from every alley, rooftop, and sewer in a surprise attack that will cripple the enemy.
Nice. That is a good one. And as I said, we'll check in with you on surpluses and needs when we get to get a little further on. Once we kind of get to those plays, we'll have you make those choices. Tower of Velos. What is your core move, and which one do you think you want to choose after that?
So just to, because my loyalty starts off of a choice type of thing.
Ooh, okay.
So my loyalty is the Ancestral Circle of Velos rules over you, just as the guilds are ruled over by their ill-fashioned masters. And I choose their starting control, and then we go from there. So I'm starting at neutral. You traffic in memories and emotions and can spend a decree to change anyone's surplus or need mirage into surplus or need morale, which is fun.
That is nice. You also get to say mirage and morale a lot. And
yeah, it's going to come up. So my starting move is the Tower's Arts, which is I can spend a decree and weave powerful emotions and memories into koan shards. Gain 1 surplus mirage per point of arts I spend. I'm the only one that can hold multiple instances of surplus mirage, but neither surplus nor need mirage affect my particular momentum, although they do affect other people's. And bliss, however, is a fleeting thing. When a new cycle starts, I lose all my surplus mirage. And then for my other move, I went with the Shadow Harvest. I also have the problem of all of the moves in my playbook are really cool. So there's a 10% chance this may change by next time, but for the moment, it's when you conquer a place haunted by memories of pride or sorrow, gain 2 points of arts or lore in any combination, and when a new cycle starts, gain 1 point of arts or lore for each of those sites that I still control.
That's nice. That's a very fun one. A lot of interactivity there. And then, Chris, what are the moves for the Untamed?
Okay, the Untamed's core move is Stalk the Land. When you gain 1 of your key resources, put an appropriate marker on the map.
Nice.
When markers are placed, they're hidden, and the surplus cannot be affected by you, other players, or the GM. You may reveal a surplus at will if it's in response to its particular trigger. There are special effects, and it gives a list of like what happens if it's a surplus hunters. I get to reveal after a nearby battle to give an involved faction need recruits. If it's a surplus of spies, reveal after an important meeting or clandestine action nearby to gain 1 lore. If it's a surplus of scouts, I get to reveal in an unexplored area to discover a bountiful resource worth a surplus if secured. If it's a surplus of laborers, reveal after a house triggers windfall nearby to gain the erased surplus.
Neat.
Revealed markers are vulnerable to attack. If you somehow lose them, you lose the surplus. So at the beginning of the city phase, you may spend a decree to hide or move all revealed surpluses.
Interesting. So there's some stuff for you to track on that one. Which of the other moves is most appealing to you right now?
Right now, I've picked a Mountain Taller, which says that when you endure to protect your traditions and territory, give your opponent a need of your choice on a 7+. And that kind of fits with my idea of the nomads. Is basically like if you try to chase them into their space, like you're going to be hurting in some way. Like they're going to make you pay for it. And I kind of like that idea.
Excellent. We are next going to move to the city details, and this is actually going to involve rolling dice. So I had forgotten about this, so I'm going to very quickly put together a die roller for us, and let me do that. Roll with me, and we'll.
I think you have one. It's
Do I?
in the Lines and Veils.
What?
Yeah, you've got a link to one in there.
Like I knew what I was doing. Okay. Open link. All right. So GM. So we're going to go through, and there first set of things is a set of distant landmarks. We're going to mark things on the map. We're going to start with city monuments, and you're going to roll twice on these tables, and you're going to draw in a mark of the generated location in your city. We're going to do this until everybody's drawn 2 things, and then we're going to do some Borderlands things. So we're going to work through this part. So let's see, we did that order. Tyler, we ended with you, so let's start with you. So Tyler, roll me a d6.
Alrighty.
And then another d6.
Okie doke. So first d6, a 3.
Okay, and the second d6.
Second d6, a 1.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is tell Tyler what the result is. Keep going around till I get back to Tyler and say, okay, what do you want to put on the map? So we all have a little bit to think about this. So Tyler, the thing that you're going to have to sketch for a landmark on this first go round is a school, academy, or training hall.
Okay.
Okay. Chris, why don't you roll me 2d6? So that looks like a 1 and a 4. So that's a market, city farm, or festival grounds that you're going to add. And then Daniel, roll me 2d6. That's 6 and 4. So that is a courthouse, prison, or execution square. And then Patrick?
So 1, then a 3.
1, then a 3. That will be a foundry, warehouse, or counting house. So let me give you a couple minutes. And basically, you just have to mark something on the map and you can give it a name. If you want to put a little more descriptor on there, you can do that. So I'll give a few minutes to add those on. Oh, you can zoom. So Tyler, what have you added to the map here?
I have added the Living College.
Ooh.
Which is there, the structure to the west of the city center.
Is it below, or is it the thing that's actually on that floating thing?
It's the thing that's on the floating bit there.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then Chris, what have you added?
I added the Panerian Fairgrounds, kind of a festival area, kind of on the outskirts down by that weird sort of low to the ground tree. I guess I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but I think that's like an old festival ground where where the nomads used to have like a yearly festival back in more peaceful times. I think it's sort of fallen out of use since the war, because obviously it wasn't safe to bring together large numbers of your people in one place until maybe very recently, depending on how the current occupation is looking by the time we're done with it.
Excellent. And then Daniel, what have you added?
Well, I haven't finished yet because I don't quite have a name figured out, but I think it's going to be a building over here near the center of the city that used to be a court. But is now just a place where it's basically a place where troublemakers are executed. So it's turned from a court into sort of an execution grounds.
Nice. Patrick, what about you?
So down in the southeast corner, in that little, I'm gonna say molten-ish volcano lit, I have the Gymfire Forge there, which, you know, we're in a place that's been at various wars for a long time. So I think there are lots of foundries and places that make armory and weapons. But this is a foundry that's known for their work with the crystals and the relic incorporation and weird koan arts on weapons and stuff like that.
Excellent. We're going to go Catan style back again. You're going to do another city monument. So Patrick, roll me 2d6.
3 and then 5.
3 and then 5. So a garrison, gang HQ, or internal barricade. Daniel, roll me 2d6.
5 and a 6.
5 and a 6. So that is a temple, monastery, or holy site.
Okay.
Chris?
Okay. That is a 1 and a 6.
A hospital, herbalist gardens, or asylum. And Tyler?
All right. A 2 and a 6.
That is also a hospital, herbalist gardens, or asylum.
All right.
So I'll give you a few minutes on that. This has a lot more map stuff than the other versions does. So Patrick, what have you added to the map on this round?
So there where the river sort of waterfalls down into the canyon, I put a symbol of the Mistwraiths brigand gang. They come up at night or under cover of mist. There are all sorts of rumors about their size or the strange magics that they call on, and the popular lore is that obviously their big their hideout full of all the amazing things they've stolen is behind that grand waterfall in that canyon. But there have been like treasure hunters and military and police excursions all there. No one's ever found anything.
Nice. And then, Chris, what have you added?
I added the solemnity. It's a hospice, not quite a hospital.
Okay.
Like, folks that go there aren't expected to be able to leave again under their own power. It's that sort of place, and like it caters to pretty much everybody, but usually the wealthy have their own like home space for this stuff. So it ends up being, while they're open to everyone, it ends up being almost exclusively like the lower economic classes that tend to make use of it for their end of life or palliative care.
Perfect. And then Daniel, what are you adding?
So I added the obsidian mirror up here in the clouds to the northwest. And I think that those are sort of like they're crystal-laden clouds, black crystal-laden clouds, and they are a place that that folks they consider it a holy site, and they make pilgrimages there, and they stand in front of the obsidian mirror, and they see visions of their future.
Oh, nice. And then Tyler?
I made the Garden of Peace, which is it is a garden where medical herbs are grown. It got through the siege fairly well because it was needed, but it's called the Garden of Peace because so many go there to be healed that cannot be healed. And it is the last peaceful place they repose, because if you die there, you're buried there to feed the plants that go on to help the next group.
Excellent. So we're going to do one more set of these addings. Normally I'd have us do two more, but I'm going to just do one more. These are going to be sort of borderland landmarks. And then we're going to go around and assign some things to these. So, and this will be for the all of the landmarks that we put on the table when we go to assign this. But Tyler, these are for borderlands landmarks, so things that are going to be at the margins, at the farthest edges, definitely. Mm-hmm. Why don't you roll me 2d6?
Alrighty. 3 and 4.
A fungal grove in a sacred cavern. So fairly specific. And then Daniel?
Whoops, I rolled a lot. Let's go with the second one because that's still got what the individual rolls are. So a 5 and a 4?
5 and a 4. A fortress guarded mountain pass.
All right.
Chris?
I'm trying to a 6 and a 5.
6 and a 5. A deep river or placid inner sea. And Patrick?
3 and a 6.
A grand bridge crossing a mighty river.
And we're still putting these on our map here.
Yeah,
Okay.
just should be like further at the margins.
Gotcha.
Okay, Patrick, where are you getting these marvelous icons?
If you go to insert image and choose from the web, you can get a sort of like truncated Google image search. And so I've just been doing keyword icon PNG as my searches.
You are so clever. Oh yeah, I should get all of those like free gaming icon things and put them up on my Google Drive so I can use
Yeah,
those.
I've been since we've been playing so many legacies, I've been trying to hunt through drive-through for like packs of good map icons, but it's sort of hard to determine what's in those things.
It is hard, yeah. Off topic, last night we played a Belonging Outside Belonging game, and we had big map drawing, and one of the people is an animator.
Oh,
and she blew us all out of the water. And the map was gorgeous. And at one point she drew this tiger sketch down for the sort of here be tigers thing. It was dynamite. Tyler, what have you added to the map?
I have added the hidden swamp up there, the little cloudy thing in the mountains in the northeast corner.
So deep in the mountains, there's this swamp that stands there.
Well, it said it's inside of a cavern, so that's why it's.
Oh
hidden.
yeah, so it's nice. I like it. I get it. I get it. I've been playing a lot of No Man's Sky. I find lots of things buried in caves. Yeah, I get it. And then Chris, what did you add to the map?
I added the Sleeping Sea down in the southwestern edge, basically just a quiet, a quiet little saltwater lake. It is. It doesn't really have it's not quite big enough to have like its own current system, but it's just big enough to where it has an actual like population of wildlife that can be that can be harvested at need, and and of course it's just it has just enough weird stuff that happens around it to where we can throw all sorts of strange and wonderful things into it if we need to.
Perfect. And then Daniel, what did you add?
So I did, excuse me, I added a keep to the far north, just beyond the map. That was, probably the one of the major staging areas in the wars.
Nice. Sort of just beyond. You think built by the city or built by one of the empires?
Maybe we don't know.
Oh,
maybe it's
okay.
just always been there.
That's the best. And then Patrick, what did you add?
So I added a bridge up across the river and in towards the mountains in the northeast, the Emerald Span. And I was looking at it, and I think like all that area where the river runs through all those rock formations and mountains and mesas and stuff, like it is possible to cross over into the eastern lands there, but they're really hard, treacherous journeys. And so as far out of the way as it is to go up there, I think going to that northern bridge is sort of the easiest way to get into the mountains of the East Lands. It's the Emerald Span because there was a battle going on in the area, probably over control of the bridge. It was one of those things where there were, strange arts going on. There was some sort of like earthquake geological shift during this battle, and the bridge made out of stone and wood turned completely into this green gem substance. It's not really emerald because nothing can scratch it or cut it. It's just this weird, impervious, shining, slick material.
Nice. All right, we got one more set of map things to do. And here is how this is going to work. This is not us actually drawing anything on the map. We've got a bunch of things listed there now, just a ton. Including we haven't seen it, but we know there were doubts on there. So, but we're going to go around, and each of us is going to assign 4 things. We're all going to do a political nexus, and then we're all going to do a scar of war, and then we're all going to do a haven, and then we're all going to do an impending threat. And what I'm going to have you do is say, okay, this is what it's called. And then we'll go through what the nexus is. And I'll write it down. You don't have to mark anything. You just have to tell me, and I'll keep track of that. And then political nexuses are a GM-controlled cabal. And this is either one we've already built or a new one we want to make up, is deeply rooted in this location. So you'll pick a location and say, okay, I think this group is here. So with that in mind, Patrick, I'm going to start with you. Which of these places is a political nexus for someone, and who is it? You're muted.
Now there's too many tabs. I like the idea of those the split off from the Untamed Clan, the Crystal Iconoclasts.
Mm-hmm. Where is their political nexus?
I think the Sleeping Sea.
So they've fallen back to there. That's a great one. So we have them stationed out there. Daniel, what's another political nexus and a place, and who is there?
I really want the Living College to be a political nexus because that
Okay.
seems like it would be a cool one.
Is it the nexus for someone we've already established or for a new group?
Who would fit there that we've already established? No, let's do a new group there.
Okay.
So if this is a new GM controlled group, is this another one where we could use one of the other houses?
Sure. Or even a headquarters for the soldiers, or the sixth cabal kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Have we decided what the Sixth Guild is?
They're the secret denied guild that's in the shadows.
But we haven't really
Black
fleshed them out
market,
at all, right?
underground criminal sort of stuff.
Yeah, we haven't.
Okay.
Do you want to put them there? Or do you have somebody else you want to put?
Sorry, I'm digging through some of this stuff here.
Sure.
Real quick.
There's a lot of stuff.
There is so much. Oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. Yeah, let's go ahead and put them there. I think that'll work.
So the Sixth Guild are ensconced in the Living College. I love that. I think that's great. Chris, what's another place that's a political nexus for someone?
I think it's got to be the Spire of Justice.
Ooh.
And I think that the kingdom has staked that out. I think that's where the soldiers sort of try and make examples of people that they think are the saboteurs and conspirators from the old empire that they believe are still here. So it's like one of those political statement execution zones, and that's the soldiers are using it for that purpose.
Awesome. And then Tyler, what's one more?
I think I'm going to use my own, which is a little cheesy, but still. In the Hidden Swamp, I think that's where the Verdant Priesthood is.
That's sort of appropriate.
Yeah. And I kind of like having a few cabals out there because I need to get dominance on people, and it's kind of nasty to do it to fellow players.
Awesome. The next thing we're going to do the same order, is you're going to establish a scar of the war. So this is a location that we think is ruined. It's kind of a reminder of what was there, and maybe not now, but I'm going to note that maybe a project might be able to restore it, and I'll put that in the notes. So, Patrick, what is a place that's ruined that you're like that people are, saddened by its loss?
I'm still sad about the Burnt Crest Market.
Okay.
I think it was a real cultural touchstone for the city.
Excellent. And Chris, what's another scar?
I think it's got to be the sanatorium. That's just right there as a reminder of basically everything that the city was forced to sacrifice.
Excellent. And Daniel, what's another one?
kind of want to pick the Mist Wraiths for this.
Ooh.
And I think maybe the Mist Wraiths are like actually trapped memories or trapped echoes of soldiers who have been killed.
Ooh.
That's really good.
Like their souls get caught up in the crystal and qualm and get washed down river to this. Oh,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
oh, I'm loving that.
All the war detritus goes downstream.
Yeah. And then Tyler, what about for you? What's a scar of war?
I'm thinking the fairgrounds. Chris, that was yours you put on the map. Is that right?
Right.
Can you give me a little bit of the lore of it again?
Basically, it's it was a ritual space for like people of the city and the nomads to like meet and trade, almost like a county fair sort of thing, with a little bit of the sort of religious nature worship overtones to it.
Okay. Then yeah, I think that it's kind of a casualty of the war in that doesn't happen as much. It's broken and has been torn up. But that it could be that again, but it's inhospitable for its use any longer.
Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to decide is havens. These are well-preserved, secure bases for your house. So I am going to flip the order now because Tyler needs to put something on the map. Where is the redoubt?
Yeah.
Where is your base at?
Looking at the map, and just to make it easier, I like the tower on the right side of the centerpiece there. So I'm going to put it there, I think.
Tower on the right side of the centerpiece. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So should I write it in?
Yeah, just write in the redoubt so we remember where it is.
Gotcha. Doesn't have to be that large, but it should be large.
Daniel, where is your haven? Where is the haven for the rebels?
I kind of like them being in or near the hidden swamp, actually. So maybe there's like a network of caves there that there is some access to it from near the workers' ghetto.
So they're kind of, we've got the verdant priesthood sort of deep in the swamp, and you're probably having to negotiate with them at times for space there. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chris, where is the haven, the central place for the untamed?
I think that we're trying to use some of the spaces we've already marked out here.
Pick something that's already on the map.
Can it be something that's already being used by something else?
Yeah, we can double up things.
Okay. So I'm thinking, like, because of the connection between the two factions, like the Sleeping Sea might be a good haven, like a haven of last resort for the nomads. That's where the iconoclasts are, because maybe that's one of the most ancient sites. So like the fundamentalist nomads, have claimed it as like their political nexus.
Says their political nexus, they really have control, but it is your fallback point.
Right.
Okay. And then where is the Tower of Velos's haven?
So I think it would be over near the workers' ghetto. I think it's they're sort of in those like hills and rougher areas. So I think it's sort of a natural little depression that was turned into an amphitheater like sometime in the distant past. And it's called the Court of Echoes.
Everyone's so good at names.
As long as you don't have to name their character.
Oh god.
That's where it all goes to
Right.
hell.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to do one more thing that we're going to add to the map, and this is a threat. And I'm going to have you roll for a random threat from my list of factors here, or a thing that you're going to work into a threat here. So Tyler, much like we did before, can you roll me a D6 and another D6?
Indeed. Let's see. Boom. 4. And 4.
Okay. So I want you to choose a place, and there's a threat coming from an icon of old, like a threat coming from someone ancient there.
They are the threat.
They're tied in, or they're responsible for, or linked. So what kind of thing do you think that would be? In what place? And you can double up on spaces too.
I think the Living College.
Okay. So we've got the 6th guild there. What is this ancient figure, this icon of old? Is it an old imperial figure? Is it an old figure of the city? What do you think it is?
I think it's an old figure of the city that Mike could find, or at least be dealt with by the Forbidden Guild.
So an ancient force, an old figure of the city, but perhaps with the proto version of the magics that keep your people alive, like one of the elders, like you know, since we already established some Vampire the Masquerade things, maybe one of them buried away in torpor and
Some Methuselah stuck down in the library. Maybe that's why it's living.
I love it. And then Daniel, let me have you roll me a D6 and another D6 and a second D6.
Hey, you got it. There's a 6 and a 5.
Okay. So the next threat needs to be to an artery of trade, like a trade route or something involving trade. There needs to be some kind of threat there.
So the location is an artery of trade?
So what we know is there's a threat to an artery of trade, and you can pick a location that's associated with it. Maybe that's where if it's bandits, that's where they're hid out, or if it's the place that's being attacked, or something like that. Or if it's a monster or something.
So let's see. Have we decided that we trade a lot of things from is it the Gemfire Forge?
Yeah, we've established that as a place that has some resources, right, Patrick?
Yeah, we haven't established much about how we interact with it, but they're well known and sought after foundry.
So is there something threatening that?
Yeah, I was thinking. I'm so like into the Order of Kiradar right now that everything I think about is about giant monsters. Okay. So obviously there's like a giant a giant creature of some kind that resides in the gemstone forge, and maybe its sleeping body is what powers the forge. But through its use, through the production that we're doing there, and sort of the increased demand due to our new trading partners and so forth, there are rumblings that it is beginning to wake.
Begun to awaken. Giant power source. Nice. Chris, roll me a d6 and then yet another d6.
That's a 1 and a 5.
1 and a 5. So, Chris, tell me where there is a dreadful plague.
Oh, dreadful plague. Oh gosh.
And feel free to X card that if you don't want a dreadful plague.
No, I think we can deal with that. Is everybody else comfortable with the idea of us having a dreadful plague before I jump into it?
I am fine with it.
Okay. Let's see. I think. I think we've got a dreadful plague, and I think it's associated with the House of Coin, not because that's the locus of the plague or anything, but because the House of Coin is going through a little bit of turmoil related to this, because they don't want news of the of this sort of burgeoning plague that's got people like showing up at the Solemnity and the Garden of Peace. They are trying to reconstruct their traditional trade empire here, now shifting focus to the kingdom instead of the empire, and they're basically in the business of trying to suppress the word of the actual plague getting out, because that would mean that the kingdom would very likely stop sending as many resources through here, and stop accepting trade goods and things like that.
Interesting kind of corruption there. And then Patrick, 2d6.
All right, that's 2 then a 4.
A 6 if we were rolling PBTA, so that does fit. So tell me where there is vital infrastructure collapsing.
What have we said about the Garden of the Foundation?
It is like an ancient, like the statuary that was built to honor, and it has begun to decay. But is there something more malevolent or more dangerous out of that? You can decide that.
I have a suggestion if you would like it.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe the live stream seems like a pretty critical part of our infrastructure, since it is what generates our potable water?
Yeah, maybe there's like some sort of contamination that's coming up in it sort of periodically now, so it's not like our water supply is poisoned all the time, but that could get worse at any time. We don't know what's causing it, sort of thing.
Mysterious malady affecting the live stream. We've talked to Shinra and they just don't know what's going on. It's all good.
You just need more souls.
So that is all of the map making, all of the building. We're going to do one last thing. And all this is I want to know what people are thinking about for their character playbook, because we're going to build that at the start of next time. So now that we've got everything in place, Patrick, are you still thinking of doing a singer?
100%. I even have a picture.
Oh, okay. Daniel, what are you thinking of doing? What are you leaning into here?
I was thinking about maybe doing a veteran. I think I would like to do maybe somebody who escaped from the sanatorium.
Oh, I like that.
Nice.
Tyler,
I think maybe. Oh no,
go on. Yeah, no.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think maybe they're using some of the crystals from the folks at the tower as a means to like suppress the war blindness.
Ooh,
Ooh.
that's very nice. Tyler, what are you thinking about for your character playbook?
I'm thinking a prowler. I've been tempted by the storyteller, but I'm thinking maybe the prowler.
Okay. And then Chris, what are you thinking?
I'm still torn between the storyteller and the vagabond.
Okay.
Like I really like both of those ideas.
Well, all of those, so that's nothing the others have chosen, so you can think about that. If you want to, you can put, between now and next session, you can put some of the materials in, get started on that, just get some of the picks done, pick a column. We'll start out with that next time and get rolling. Thank you all. As I warned you at the start, this is the game that fills the space of it. But wow, look at that map. I'm
Cool.
super excited to try this out. Typically what I do with something like this is I'm going to wait till session 2 before we do any stars and wishes, because we're still getting things in place. But I do want to just say how excited I am. Like I'm loving what people have put here. I'm excited to see where it goes. So I really appreciate all of you going along with me, trying this out and getting this to work. So I'm going to stop recording.